Hey everybody, welcome back. We're out here at the Modern Farmhouse. It's a new construction project. Today we're going to talk about basement insulation. So we're down here. This is the fitness room in the project. These are concrete foundation walls on the outer shell here. And what you can see here is, you can see the framed wall. We have some blown rock wool here. But before we got to that level, we had the 10-inch concrete wall. We have our drainage system on the outside there. If you're not familiar with the drainable insulation on the outside, it goes through a perimeter drain. Go check out one of my earlier videos where I talk about that exact system and basement foundation, waterproofing, etc. And but we're going to talk about the insulation here specifically. So on the inside of that foundation wall, we framed a 2x4 wall. We held it off the foundation wall 1.5 inches, and then we hit it with a flash of 2 inches of closed cell. The 2 inches of closed cell is up against the foundation. It locks it in. It gives us nice continuity because we have that 1.5 inch airspace, locks itself in on the studs, and then it leaves us that 3.5 inch, 3-inch cavity here to blow some rock wool. So you can see here, the blown in rock wool, it gets installed just like any other dense pack type insulation, but the slight differences of blown in rock wool are you don't have to have a certain density. Basically, my insulator here says that he can install the rock wool for roughly the same price as cellulose, and it's a slightly better R value. This comes in at around 4.1, 4.2. Cellulose is about 3.6 per inch, so it's about an R value of 0.5 or better. But you can see it's that they just staple up this liner and then they puncture in some holes. And then you can see here the blown in rock wool. It's just this little fluffy stuff that gets blown in there. Now your insulator has to have a little bit of knowledge with this. It has to have an auger that has the ability to lower the speed so you don't grind it up. You want this stuff to stay in the big chunks when it gets blown in there. But you can see here, there's nothing here that has to get tested. They basically fill the bay and then they go on to the next one. So let's take a jump over here. We're going to look at what happens out at the window wall and what we did over there. So we're over here on the other side. That wall was a full height concrete wall. This side here, facing the backyard, you can see we've put in some rather large windows. Those are those triple glazed low-E windows from Schuco. These are thermally broken aluminum. If you haven't watched, I have a couple videos out there on these windows. I suggest go back. You can learn a little bit about those in those videos. But here you can see we have that stepped wall. So basically from here down, we have your traditional foundation wall. And this side is pretty much the same as the other side. We have the wood frame here. It sets off the wall, 1.5 inches. And then we blow 2 inches of closed cell in there as a flash system. And then we come in and we blow in the rock wool here. And then you can see how this steps back. And then we have our 2x8 frame up above here. And we fill those cavities with the rock wool there. So that's it for basement insulation. Let's jump back to the studio. We'll break out a couple details and we'll talk about that in detail. Hey everybody. So welcome back to the studio. As you know, we got our good friend Big Red here. We're going to dive into that detail. We're going to just look at a really quick wall section of what we're doing there with basement insulation and the few components that make it up. And I'm going to talk about some concepts of continuity and being proportional. We're going to talk about some of the R values in that wall system. Pretty exciting stuff. But you know, we're going to talk about how do we take that basement and, you know, kind of get rid of the myth of it being basement space and really show you how can we create really good living space down in the basement. So let's check out this detail. All right, everybody, we got our good friend Big Red here. And as you can see, I printed out the detail here of what's going down in the basement there. A couple things I wanted to point out. You can see there's our foundation wall and our footing. And here is our concrete slab. All right, those are the structural pieces that are required to keep the building standing. So in addition to that, we need to provide insulation and, comfort and health to the indoor environment there. So coming under the slab, you can see I did 2 layers, 2-inch Type 9 EPS. Type 9 EPS is rated for ground exposure. That's why you use it down there. It carries, I believe it's a 25 PSI rating as far as its bearing capacity. And that 2 inches actually turns the corner. So we make sure that we've totally isolated that slab on the inside. So we basically thermally broken it from the outside to the inside. Now that 2 inches stops obviously at the top of the slab. We then frame a 2x4 wall, or I call for it. And the 2x4 wall is held off 1.5 inches from the foundation wall. And you can see that goes all the way up to the bottom of the floor joist. There's the foundation wall. And what we do there is we spray a couple inches of Close-Cel. Now, I know spray foam isn't, widely accepted. There's a lot of people that are against its use. I kind of have mixed feelings. It's the building scientist in me says it is the right product for the right job. As an architect, I'm trying to do the right thing all the time, but it becomes challenging. When I have conversations with my insulator, he says, I could spray that 2-inch Close-Cel, and we use one that has a GWP of 1. We're not going to get into what that is. You're going to have to Google GWP, but it has a GWP of 1. And he says he could spray that for less expensive than he can purchase rigid insulation for that location. So it's kind of hard to come at the homeowner and say, yeah, we need more money in the budget because we don't want to use this spray foam. We want to do this. And in some projects that might be possible. In this project, it wasn't. The Close-Cel spray foam was part of the solution here. And you can see there we use, it's a FoamLock 2000 4G. The 2 inches carries an R value of about 14. So we have that 14 in there. And then we do a 2x4 wall and we fill that with an R13 blown insulation. So we have that 14 and we have 13. So we're right there at R27 across our basement wall. Right? By using that. The Close-Cel doesn't allow, moisture transfer. So if this foundation wall did get charged with any water, it can't penetrate that system and dry to there. It has to dry back out to the outside. And if you remember, if you don't remember seeing it, then I suggest maybe go back and watch the video. But I did the video where on the outside here, we actually did a drainable insulation with a coating all the way up to grade. So we were able to take care of any water that might challenge that foundation wall on the outside before we allow it to get into the foundation wall, which means that this interior wall, although it might get challenged a little, but it's very, very little. And then, that gives us that 2x4 wall that we can put outlets in, and we can furnish the basement and use that as real living space. At R27 and, with that impermeable layer there and not having any moisture transfer through there, really makes this a nice, comfortable space and, arguably a healthy space. And, we can condition it, heat it, cool it, all of that good stuff to make the basement feel no different than the spaces above. We, trying to get away from, oh, that's basement, a room in the basement. No, it's pretty much this basement. If you walked around it, you wouldn't know, much difference between it and the upper levels as far as, from a conditioning perspective. But, getting back to that insulation, that continuity is key. Notice that although we have 4 inches of EPS, 2 inches climbs out over the top of the footing and goes up the inside face of the perimeter of the slab, isolating the slab and isolating the foundation wall and footing so we don't have that thermal break. That 2 inches then carries up the wall and migrates into the band joist area. So we have that continuity of insulation, and then we'll capture that with the wall frame above. But then we do that blown-in insulation in that cavity. And, you know, we chose to do a blown-in rock wool here, but you could do that as an unfaced bat. You could do it as a rock wool bat. You could do it as cellulose. You could do it as blown fiberglass. I mean, all of those cavity insulations are fine there, and they can be air permeable insulations because you don't have any air movement across that system. So anyways, that's how we insulated that basement. Thanks for joining us, and you know, that's the detail. Big Red, as always, thanks for your help. Alrighty, that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed that. You know, it's always great when we can go down in the basement and recover some of that as really fine conditioned space and put it to some good use. So keeping it dry, keeping it warm, keeping it healthy down there. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't checked out some of my previous videos, I suggest maybe go check them out. If you haven't checked out my colleagues, go check out Matt, Jake, Wade, and Brent. They are doing some absolutely fabulous stuff, and you need to check them out. Some really good stuff there on the Build Show network. I get a lot of people asking me, where can I find some good information? Well, you literally have hundreds of videos there where you can go and check out all kinds of different concepts about building, business, the building industry, materials, all of that good stuff. So go check it out. And then I'll just... a couple personal plugs. You can find me out on Instagram. You can find me at Stephen Baczek Architect. I drop a lot of these details, have these conversations with the building industry. So you can find me at, like I said, Stephen Baczek Architect on Instagram. And lastly, my good friends Peter and Jake and myself. We are the three amigos, and we host the Unbuild It podcast. And we drop versions every 2 weeks. They're all about building science. We break down some pretty complex concepts right down to the bare common denominator, and have some discussions about those. So hopefully we're bringing some knowledge, and go check it out. Unbuild It podcast, Steve Baczek Architect on Instagram, and of course the Build Show Network. Until next time, long live our buildings.